Amen. Hopefully you've all got your notes. I think there's some spare copies by the door. First selected messages, page 206. I don't know if you had a chance to read through this short article after class yesterday. Just want to add one point. The title here is Firm Foundation of Our Faith, but if you took the time to actually go back to the source of this document, I'm not referring to the Special Testimony Series B, that it's the original source from, but even the second selected messages passage, this is only a subsection of the article itself. It begins back 6 pages earlier, depending how you count, in page 201. It's chapter 25. It's called The Foundation of Our Faith. Slightly different to this section. And this is quite a few paragraphs into this article. We commented yesterday this was 1904, so I just want to add that. If we were going to do this study properly, we should really have gone back to the beginning of this article, this testimony, I guess, I don't know how you describe it, to actually see what Ellen White's talking about, who she's talking to, and what the point of this testimony is all about. If you were to do that, it would shed light on the whole point of what's going on. But we're not doing that. We could spend a long time going through this and glean a lot of light. Okay, so we read the first paragraph yesterday, and we're kind of about a third of the way into this paragraph. We got to the place after the compilers have added their short comment, which is in uppercase. It says, Harry Medson and others who were keen, noble and true were among those who after the passing of the time in 1844 searched for the truth as for hidden treasure. So it's that sentence and the one at the very beginning of the article. Many of our people do not realise how firmly the foundation of our faith has been laid. I don't know if anybody did think to go to the beginning of this article. If you didn't, it's fine. But just based upon that first sentence, what do you think the point of this article is about? So don't go looking now. Sister Kathy.
They've forgotten the old ways.
So they've forgotten the old ways. Brother Graham? So just from the first sentence, many of our people do not realise how firmly the foundation of our faith had been laid. So if a speaker on Sabbath had sort of opened their sermon with that kind of a phrase, why would you think that they would open up in that way?
Maybe they're addressing concerns that people want to change doctrines or truths, that they're not happy with the old foundations or with the way things have been done in the past.
So Sister Kathy said that they're forgotten. Sorry? And you've said it's a lot stronger than just forgetting. They've actually either moved away from those foundations, drifted away, and these words are actually given in a stronger fashion. There's a concern that people have lost their direction. Yeah? Sister Kathy?
The other thought is that a lot of people...
Can everybody hear her?
A lot of people may not even know how the foundation was laid, and therefore are being susceptible to changes.
So if you were to go back and see why this article was written, you'll find that there is an attack upon the foundations, and she's trying to address this subject. So you could pick that up just from the first sentence. We didn't do that yesterday. We've seen that this was written in 1904. We didn't get to this part, but in this article she talks about 50 years. So the history that's being portrayed here in the first half of the paragraph, in fact most of this section, has occurred 50 years before. So I asked yesterday, where would we be in time? So we can see that we're in the post-1844 period. This is October. And if we went back 50 years from 1904, it would take you to 1854. So this history it can't go past 1854, that's what I'm saying. And as soon as you start thinking in those terms, you end up gravitating to the 1850 chart. And I think most of us are aware that between 1844 and 1850, a work was done in the church to substantiate the truths that were understood, developed in the Millerite history. So just from those clues, you can get a really good idea about what she's talking about and the history that we have to deal with. Any questions on that? Bob?
My question is, I'm not sure which people she's referring to, because if I look at the Advent movement, I see that in obviously the 1843 chart, as we know, once they passed that date with the first disappointment, was not being utilized. And then it was after October of 1844 that you only had a small group of people that were studying. And then by 1850, when they produced the second chart, the second chart I think may have been trying to be used largely to bring the people back who they left behind, that didn't, go all the way through.
So what was your question, sorry?
My question is when we look at the people being already displaying some Laodicean characteristics by the late 1850s, I find it hard to believe that the 1850 chart was, that only 7 years after, or short years after the 1850 chart, that they're already going Laodicea.
Okay, but she's not addressing that issue here, is she?
Not particularly.
Okay. So that is a valid question, but it's not germane to this issue, because she's dealing with a controversy in 1904.
Okay.
That's attacking the work that was done between 1844 and 1850.
Well, it's only relevant from the standpoint that obviously there were people who were already rejecting the stuff that was on the 1850 chart, possibly, and that's why they're becoming Laodicean. I don't know.
But this is 50 years later.
Okay.
It's the reason why I'm making this point. Without going back to the beginning of the article, would be second guessing. But if you were to do that, you'll see that the whole subject matter that's being addressed here. Does anybody know? This is the Kellogg issue.
Oh.
This is what's being addressed here. If you went back and you were to read from the beginning, you'd see that's what the issue that she's really dealing with in this 1904 thing. There are other issues connected with that. When we finished yesterday, so hopefully we all agree that the foundation is here, 44. I've put 54 here, but I'm going to change that to 50. So 1844 to 1850. Someone, I think Sister Sue Allen, did note that if you went to 1854, you do actually have a 10-year period here, from 44 to 54, which I thought was actually really interesting. And because we mark these 10 years in our own history. Brother Daniel.
Can I make an application?
No, not yet. In a minute.
It's a cool one.
They're all cool. All the ones you do are cool. Just don't forget it. So we've got the foundation, and remember, okay, so that's okay. Then we picked up, it says, after the passing of time. So I asked what that time is, and this here is saying prophetic periods ended. And the question I asked was, is she talking about prophetic periods or a prophetic period, singular, in this context? And we didn't quite finish that discussion. So I think Brother Clayton was leaning towards a singular period.
Just because the way I read this isolated in this one sentence, yeah, it just seemed that way to me. But I'm not a grammar expert.
Sister Brittany, you're a grammar expert.
I don't know if you can pick that up from the grammar here, if it's periods or period.
You can't?
It seems like it could go either way.
Yes.
You should tell us. You're British. You usually know the English better than us.
No. People know me, they know I can't spell, and I'm terrible at grammar.
So where do you find the word periods here in this quote, or you refer to?
No, you don't. With it, you don't. It said after the passing of the time in 1844. So when it said the time, what time is it referring to? So we picked up this idea that we're spoken about no more time. Time has ended. Time shall be no longer. And we came to the conclusion that the time that's been referred to is this time here.
Yeah.
So we know it's prophetic time. It's going to end in October 1844. It says, the time has passed. I'm understanding that past to mean ended, the ending of time, the passing of time in 1844. So here that we get this idea that there's no more time, which means the prophetic periods or period has ended. Brother Larry, did you have a thought?
I think it's singular, just because the argument was over the disappointment, or that's what in regards to the passing of time, 1844, in regards to the sanctuary.
Can you explain a little bit more?
So a little bit that I read on this article, it says the passing of the time. We know that there's two prophetic periods that ended there. One has to do with the 2520 and one has to do with the 2300 days. And in context, I think it's referring to the 2300 period, just on a little bit that I've read here.
So we'll go with those two prophetic periods, 2520, 2300 days. What was the 2520 teaching? What would it be showing us or indicating to us? The 2520.
Oh, no, you said the 2300 days?
Oh, I meant
You said 2520.
I meant the 2520. Sorry,
Okay.
I meant the 2520. What would that be? No, let me go with the 2300 days. Maybe that's an easier one to begin with. What would the 2300 days show us? When you get to October 1844, how would you know that the 2300 days had been fulfilled? What would be the marker?
The date,
But the dates come. What's the marker for it? The event.
in heaven, or
No, we've got to think about contextually what the Millerites are thinking.
second coming.
Second coming. Everybody okay with that? So I'm just going to do that and bring it up here because it's going to get low. So we're in 1844. This is October, and the 2300 days. They knew this would have been fulfilled. That they knew the time would have passed because they would have seen Christ coming in the clouds of heaven. This would be the second advent. So The question is, has the time passed or not? How would you know the time has passed? Sister Tamina, how do you know the time's passed?
Because they didn't have any other prophetic time periods extending 1844. They were only leading up to 1844.
But how do you know? How do you know it's passed?
Because the angel says so.
An angel told them.
Revelation 10, no more time.
Brother Larry.
Because Christ didn't come.
So, okay, Christ didn't come.
You'd have to know the start to answer that, I think. How you wouldn't know it passed unless you know the start, so you'd have to go back to the start to know that it passed, in my opinion.
Okay, so we'll go to 457 BC. You get to the date, the 10th of October, sorry, the 10th month of 1844, and nothing happens. So what are you going to think?
Either I'm wrong,
Or
they're wrong, so they had to go back and look
For the event.
at those.
okay, so the natural assumption is, because you can't argue against the event, can you? The event is firm, because everybody knows what the sanctuary is. Yeah? And the sanctuary is what?
In their view, it's the earth.
So this is the earth. And which Bible passage are we in, Sister Pam? Where are we? Where the 10th day of the 7th month, this, it's the sanctuary, and we'll just go with that. Where are we? What Bible verse? Sorry?
I don't know.
It's not Ezra. You're looking for Ezra.
So you're asking what the Millerites would be thinking.
Yeah, I'm not worried about what we think, because our thinking can't be in a vacuum. It has to be based upon how they think. Do you have? Sister Alyssa?
Leviticus 16.
Okay, so Leviticus 16, Day of Atonement. Is that what you, yeah? Sister Kathy?
Peter 2:7?
No, we're only going to 10th day of the 7th month, the sanctuary.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was looking at why they thought the earth was.
Yeah, we'll do that in a second.
Okay.
Well, I'll go with there in a second. I'm not. That's why I didn't repeat what she said. Okay, mate. Sorry.
Daniel 8:14.
Okay, this is Daniel 8:14. Sorry, I didn't mean that to seem complicated. It's just Daniel 8:14. This is the cleansing of the sanctuary. This is the framework of the Millerite movement. Without Daniel 8:14, nothing happens. Because look, it's the 2300 days. So you know it's Daniel 8:14. Yeah, that's the connection. Okay, so now they know, or they believe, that the earth is the sanctuary. And the passage tells you what? After 2,300 years, what's going to happen? It's going to be cleansed. Now, Sister Kathy, where are we going to go?
Peter 2:7.
Which Peter? Which Peter?
I'm looking.
Okay.
Uh,
We'll go with 2 Peter. So we're going to go to with 2 Peter 3:7. Okay, so we're going to go to 2 Peter 3:7. And 2 Peter 3:7 is going to give you a chance to read it. You tell me when you find it, Sister Christy. 2 Peter 3:7. When you found it, tell me when you've read it. Yep? You read it?
Yes.
Okay, I want you to paraphrase. Don't read the verse to me. Tell me why we've gone to 3:7.
The time's at hand. The time is at hand hand right now. We're out of time. This is the time of judgment.
And what's going to happen?
The ungodly men are going to be judged.
In 3:7,
Wait, do I remember what? 2 Peter
2 Peter 3:7.
3:7.
So you're in the right verse, you've got ungodly men there, you're picking up all the right things. But what's the main thing that's going to happen with respect to the cleansing of the sanctuary? Because that's what we're talking about.
It's talking about a day,
Yep.
a point in time.
And what's going to happen on that day?
There's a judgment.
And what does the judgment look like?
It's fire, it's the end.
Fire.
Right.
And what will that fire do? Because the earth is the sanctuary. What will that fire do?
Cleanse completely.
Cleanse it.
Yeah.
So this is Millerite thinking. The earth is the sanctuary. The way the earth is going to be cleansed is by fire. This is not the only Bible verse that does it, but it's a nice one, easy one to see. And it talks about the judgment. It talks about the day of judgment. Those ungodly men are going to be destroyed. So you can see they've got a nice, tidy message. It's logical, consistent. So you get to October 1844 and nothing's happened. So then you have to go back and say the calculation must be wrong. And as they do this, obviously in this history, they realise that the calculation isn't wrong, but it's the event that's wrong. And this is so difficult for them to grapple with, they actually need some help. They need some divine help. And what's the divine help that they're going to be given? Not Ellen White. Hiram Edson. Hiram Edson is a key player in the post-1844 movement because he's the one that's going to essentially give them the sanctuary message. We know that they're going to study it out. We know that Ellen White's going to aid them. But without Hiram Edson's work, they were just stuck with their Bibles and they wouldn't know where to go really. He gives them the impetus to do that. So Hiram Edson's going to be used here in 1844. Where else is Hiram Edson going to be used?
The second one. Doesn't he do the second 2520?
Does he or does he? He does, yeah.
He does? Okay.
Yeah.
Is that what you're referring to?
Brother Graham, what year is that?
That he brings that forth?
Yes.
I don't know.
Brother Gregory, do you know?
Sorry, what was that question?
2520.
Yeah.
Hiram Edson, what year?
Yeah, I don't know that.
Sister Alyssa? You're not looking, are you?
I am.
No, I'm not asking then. Sister Brittany?
I have no idea.
Brother Daniel? No? Brother Philip?
1854?
No.
50.
56. It's 1856. He begins to do a series of articles in 1856. And what's the problem? The problem is James White has already become Laodicean and he's not going to give him the support and the assistance and the help that Hiram Edson needs to get this message into the public domain, so it just dies a death. And this begins the work of attrition against the 2520. Now, we can only do this putting sort of the pieces of the jigsaw together. This is not Spirit of Prophecy quotes. I'm saying the 2520 would have been the key, as it is today, that would have been used to unlock time if they had followed through with that. So, when they become Laodicean, I'm arguing in 1850, it's not the only person, but James White is going to be instrumental, and I'm not even talking about 63 when you go that far back, just in 56, to essentially retard the work that Hiram Edson is going to be doing. Hiram Edson is a key person. He's here in October. He's going to give them a sanctuary message, and he's going to straighten them out on the 2520. Sister Tamina.
When we just stated that from October 1844 to 1850, they recalculate and they see the calculations were correct, just they had the event wrong. And then 2 years later, Hiram Edson comes up and he says, oh, the calculation is wrong. Or
You've got, it's not that straightforward. Did everybody hear what she said? Understood? It's not that straightforward an argument. What's Hiram Edson's 2520, if I can call it that one, if I can say it that way?
1798.
Northern Israel.
So you're going to say 1798.
Yep.
That's more than that.
Well, it starts 723, right?
723.
And the midpoint is 508
Yeah. 538.
or 538.
538. 723, 538, 79. Everybody familiar with that? This is Edson's 2520. So let's go with Miller's 2520. Well, Larry, what does Miller's 2520 look like?
677. 508. 1844.
Okay.
Nothing.
Sorry? Brother Daniel, are you conferring?
I'm just saying there is not a midway in the other 2520.
No.
Okay. So what you
As
want
far
to
as I
take?
know.
That isn't actually even midway, I don't think.
Yeah,
No.
it's not midway.
So that's not part of his message.
Not that what I'm saying.
Sorry?
I'm saying it's not midway as 538 is the midway from the north for the northern tribes.
Okay, but what I'm asking is 508 part of his 2520 message? That's what I'm asking. I thought that's what you were telling Brother Larry.
Not of the time prophecy, but about the history, maybe. I don't know. Yeah, it's there in that history, but I don't know if it...
No, but you've got hundreds of dates that go in that. Well, not hundreds, but lots of dates that go in this. I'm asking, is that this one here? This is a construction of his 2520 of Edson's 538. Agree with that?
Yeah.
Is 508 part of the construction of that 2520?
No, it's not necessary.
Okay, so I'm going to take that out. And you hear that, Brother Clayton? Take
Yeah,
that out.
I could tell just because you put it below instead of above.
So is that good? I'm learning.
I'm learning.
Okay. Brother Philip, anything more about Miller's 2520?
As far as dates are concerned, I don't think there's as Daniel said, there's no.
Okay, so it's just like that. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. There's no midway. There is a midway, but it doesn't have a prophetic significance. It doesn't fall on.
Okay. What I want to suggest is that Miller's 2520 doesn't look that blank. He has more information. He has the 538 in his 2520.
Oh, and the 46.
So he has a 538 there. We'd have to adjust that to 1843 if we were going to do it. So we'll make that 1843. Then what? Does he have? He has a 1798 here as well. So he's going to have 1260 years here, and he's going to have how many years here? 45 years. And here, Sister Brittany? Actually, I'm not interested if we can do the maths. This is 1215. So he has two 1260s. Miller has everything that Hiram Edson has. Sometimes we don't appreciate that. And Higher medicine, you know, we talk about 20/20 vision, higher medicine can do this. Miller can't. Miller could never have developed this. And the reason why he couldn't develop it is for a couple of reasons. One of them, he knows that it's the southern tribes that are God's people all the way through history. I mean, that's patently obvious because they're here in the glorious land. He doesn't understand that phraseology, but he can trace the history. And the second thing that he has a problem with, that Edson doesn't, because Edson is talking about something that's already happened, is that Miller has to predict, doesn't he? He has to predict into the future. Because here's Miller in 1798, and he's predicting what's about to happen. The earth is about to be destroyed. Let me just say this. I'm going to use this point, but it's in a present day context. We've all seen the presentations that Sister Tessa's done, and some of us are really firm on that, saying, yep, this is the midnight cry message. Others are a bit more cautious and hesitant. People say, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. And the people who are unsure, who are saying maybe, there are at least two reasons. I'll give two reasons why they would say that. One of them is that they say, actually, I don't even understand what she's talking about. It's too complicated. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. We'll see. But there's another group who say, I don't think it's correct, because they say not enough events have happened as of today that fulfill the characteristics of the midnight cry, which I'm going to switch to another phraseology, which I don't like, of PBM. So they're saying, okay, we're going to call this PBM, but my understanding is PBM has 4 characteristics, and she's only picked up 2. There are 2 more to fulfill, therefore this can't be correct. So we understand that logic. Okay, so come back to Millerite history. We're in 1798, and Miller's got the same problem. There's prophecies, there's history that needs to be fulfilled, which haven't happened yet. And if I can just say it in a conceptual way, the big problem that he has is Revelation 17. Revelation 17, the kings coming together, the final work, none of that has really materialized in 1798. So he knows that this 1215 years is paganism, and he knows that this is papalism, but he also knows that Revelation 15 hasn't finished. The kings of the earth haven't really even begun to do their work. America has just risen up. I'm not sure how much he even understands about America's role, but he has to tie in certain other Bible passages, prophecies that haven't been fulfilled. So he has a very sophisticated logic about how he's going to do that. So he gets the 21260s, the same ones that Edson's picking up, but he has to do it in this sort of funny way. And sometimes we don't realise that. We just think, oh yeah, it's just 22520s, then we'll shift them over, cascade them with different start dates, then we do a nice chiasm. We don't actually realise that Miller had sorted all of this out. He knew about 723. It didn't escape his attention. He was well aware of that date, but his argument is, well, I'm not interested in these people because they're already in Babylon. I'm interested in God's people. And just that argument should help direct us to this question, because people are asking, where's the world? Why are we not calling this the world? And I'm saying, because reform lines are about God's people, not about the world. Okay, so that was just, I only spoke about that because I wanted us to see that Edson is a key person in this history. He comes in 44 and he's going to come in 56, and you can just see a progression of history. So that was just, I don't know, a refresher, a slight distraction, useful information. Brother Theodore.
Well, it does relate to the point dealing with what period is being talked about as far as the time. I think that's why you brought it up, right, Dean, going back to
Yeah,
the time.
yeah, and that's what we're going to deal with that in a minute, yeah. So I'm going to take this out. Coming back to here. So when she says the passing of time, if we were to think about the 2300 days, we would have had direct evidence that the 2300 days is going to happen. Now when you come to the 2520, so we'll put the 2520 here. What do the Millerites understand that the 2520 is, conceptually, just simply? What is the 2520? Sister Sue Ellen, what is the 2520 from Millerite?
When God's people went into captivity.
When God's people go into captivity. So, Brother Bob.
Yes.
What's the 2520 for the Millerites? Captivity?
I see it as the second witness because there's two different time prophecies that are ending in at the same time.
Okay, so that's how we kind of do it now, second witness. I don't think they think about it in terms like that, although it obviously is a second witness. This concept, I'm not talking about the prophecy itself, but the concept of the 2520 is going to be found in the same place as the concept of the 2300 days. Which is where? Where'd you find the 2300 days? Sorry?
Daniel 8:14. Daniel
8:14. So if you go to Daniel 8:14, you'll see the concept of the 2520 brought up there. So it is captivity, but it's a little bit more specific. Brother Larry?
The gathering, or scattering.
Punishment.
Okay, so this gathering and scattering, I'm not sure if the Millerites understand it that way actually.
Punishment.
Punishment. Teeny bit more I'm looking for.
Covenant?
Sorry?
Covenant?
How long shall be the vision concerning what? Not the host.
The daily.
We say the host.
No.
Sorry? The daily and
the abomination of desolation.
So it's
Two desolating powers.
okay, so that's what I wanted to pick up. It's two desolating powers. All of these are correct, but it's this one. Although when I say they're all correct, I don't think they have a concept of a gathering. 2520 is just scattering. Because if you think about two desolating powers, you know there's no gathering. We think about the scattering and the gathering in a slightly sophisticated way that the Millerites, I don't think they really considered. So you've got two desolating powers that are being scattered, and this is paganism, papalism. I drew it on the board before. It's the two 1260s, if you could think about it that way. If you're okay with that. So here you are, you've got this 2520, you've come to 1844. What are you expecting to see? To say, yep, the time has passed. Because this one, the 2200 days is easy. What about the 2520? What are you expecting to see so that you know, come October 22nd, 1844, the time has passed? With respect to the 2520, if these are the concepts or the idea.
The man of sin is going to be destroyed.
Sorry?
The man of sin is going to be destroyed. That's the only thing I can think.
You can see that in the 2520, the man of sin is going to be...
Yeah, because if you're thinking Jesus is going to come in 1844 based upon the 2300 days, and that's the end of the papalism, that's the only thing I can think about.
Paganism.
Okay, let me just remind you, I don't know if you heard what Brother Theodore just said. Papalism ends where, Brother Daniel?
Oh yeah, 1788.
Yeah,
Forget
okay.
about it.
1798, they already know that.
Yeah, I know. Forget about it.
538.
It seems that Daniel 8:13 is talking about the other 25:20. It talks about two desolating powers and ends in 1788. You have 1260 for each one.
By the way, just to correct myself, when I said Daniel 8:14 and I started quoting, I was quoting Daniel 8:13. I don't know if we all knew that. It wasn't 14 is the answer. So yeah, I'm not trying to tease out the 25:20 in Daniel 8:13. It's that I didn't want to go in that direction. I only went there that you can see the two desolating powers in the same Bible passage as the 2300 days. So what I'm asking is, what are you expecting to see to say, yep, let's tick that box? Sister Brittany.
Does this have to do with what you wrote on the board before you erase it with paganism from 1798 to 1844?
Okay, so I'm going to put paganism here.
I actually don't know why you did it, but I saw you did it.
Oh, you don't know why?
I don't.
Because I've got 45 years, and if I went to 677, if you did the maths here, you'd see it's 1215. So I didn't do this. I just rushed. If I get that and bring it here, 1215 plus 45 is 1260 years of paganism. William Miller knows it's two 1260s. He
Calculation.
he understands that. He has to split it.
And where do you have paganism 1788 to 1844?
Why?
Where?
You mean, what does it look like?
Yeah.
What's the significance?
That's what I'm asking.
Oh.
If you're a Millerite, the paganism is easy. This paganism is easy. You know, this is Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, pagan road. That's all straightforward. What would you expect paganism to look like here? The modern version of paganism. By the way, this is the problem that we're facing. Yeah, you know, we don't call it paganism. What do we call it?
Spiritualism.
USA.
United Nations.
Which is
The dragon.
the dragon. So we call it the dragon power or the United Nations. And what does it look like? I don't think we actually really have a good clue, a good idea today of what we expect it to look like. We have discussed this in class, and one of the things that we did do, I don't know if you remember yesterday when we did 1, 2, 3, and then we had that crown. Remember that? And this is the ruling supremely, and this is 1260. So if we do 1, 2, 3, and then it's the 1260, this would be 538, yeah? So we could bring that into another history. So I'm going to put 538 here. Where do we have a second application for that? The 1, 2, 3, and then the 1260.
1989.
Okay? So what would that event be?
Sunday law.
So this would be Sunday law. And what verse?
41.
Does everybody agree with Brother Daniel? Can everybody see that? Yeah. Does everybody agree it's verse 41?
Conquest of Egypt.
That's what I'm asking. Does everybody agree with Brother Daniel? Okay, maybe.
We covered this, didn't we?
And we did cover it. That's why I'm asking. I'm going to date that and bring it up here. 1, 2, 3. Who's number 1, Brother Gregory?
Russia.
Okay, so I'll give the King of the
King
South.
South, yep. Glorious land.
Glorious land.
Egypt.
Egypt. And Brother Daniel says this is the Sunday law. Brother Daniel says this is verse 41.
But Egypt is verse 42.
So you see the problem?
Yeah, so it's back in the glorious land.
Oh. I don't know.
Okay, so you do know, because we already covered this.
Yeah.
it all looks really nice when we kind of say 3 territories, the Rulai, Vandals, Ostrogoths, and Syria, the glorious land, Egypt, triple application, come to our history, we're going to take down King of the South, the glorious land in Egypt. It all works nicely until you say, once you get to verse 42, where are you? And if you're not careful, you'll get tripped up. Because I don't think we haven't realized that we've boxed ourselves into a corner when we do that. Because verse 42 in the Bible is after verse 41. And the numbers just don't work and you end up getting into problems. Especially when you have to do what the Millerites did. What did I say the Millerites had to do here, by the way? What Bible passage? Here, what Bible passage do they need to deal with? Do you remember what I said? Paganism, with respect to paganism. They have to tidy up the last remnants of paganism, which was where? Revelation 17. They've got Revelation 17, which is causing them problems, and so do we. We have problems with Revelation 17 because Revelation 17 says at the very end, the woman is going to rule with whom? With the 10 kings. She's going to rule for how long? 1 hour. And where do we say that 1 hour is? 1 hour is the Sunday law period, or after the Sunday law. You agree with that? So this is the 1 hour. So if I were to ask you, I've got 1 hour here, Brother Clayton, give me the start and end points of that 1 hour. If you agree that it's the Sunday law history, then if you agree with that, the kings rule with the woman for 1 hour. So I'm going to call this the Sunday law period. Where would you begin that? And end it?
I'm not sure.
Brother Gregory?
Glorious land.
Just these 2 waymarks. Use it in the framework of this.
So it would be Sunday law at the beginning. And when they wise up to what the papacy is all about and burn it with fire and eat of flesh.
You just tell me what that one is.
That's I don't remember off the top of my head what the waymark is. It actually happens. Is it close of probation or a bit before?
Everybody agree Sunday law? Anybody got a question on Sunday law? Brother Philip?
No, it's okay.
You okay with that? No?
Yes, I'm okay.
You thinking?
Yeah, I'm thinking.
Brother Larry?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah? Sister Alyssa, this one?
I think it's close of probation.
Brother Greg?
Close of probation.
Okay, so I'm going to close of probation. So they're going to rule. Who are those 10 kings? Sorry? United Nations, the dragon. How many of them are there? 10 of them. This is the 10 kings. This is Egypt, isn't it? Yeah? So you can see 1, 2, 3, then they rule for an hour. But Brother Daniel said, hold on, that's Sunday law there. What is that Sunday law? It's verse 41, isn't it? I'll tell you my thoughts in a minute.
The thing is, as soon as the 10 kings start to rule, they give their kingdom to the woman. Means right when they start ruling, the woman is already ruling them. So she already has conquered them from the start. Or am I wrong?
Yeah, that's good. I'm happy with that. You just tell me how to do the verses. Because is that verse 41 or not?
It is. However, when we place the ruling of Egypt at the Sunday law, then we can place also verse 42 there. Because she basically conquers the glorious land, and then briefly thereafter also Egypt.
So Sister Tamina's simple answer was verse 41 and verse 42 happened at the same time. Yeah? So is that verse 41 before Sunday law? Sister Tamina?
I guess so.
What's that?
I guess so.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I mean.
So now you put verse 41 is no longer the Sunday law, it's some pre-Sunday law thing.
It's the, can I say the parallel kingdoms? It's progressive. That's
Yeah, I like that. That's just like a load of flowery words. Progressive, parallel. It all come out fine. Brother Philip.
Maybe the waymark there is not the Sunday law. Maybe it's the close of probation.
Oh, okay, so let's move the waymarks. Get out of the problem.
Don't word it like that.
Okay, the only reason I'm doing this is for us to see the Millerites' problem, Revelation 17, is the same problem that we have. We don't understand what paganism looks like. I'll tell you what my thoughts are, really briefly, that the 10 kings, I'll use that straight out of Revelation 17, and I'll use another one, dragon, which is not Revelation 17. You could go to Revelation 16 for this, Revelation 13. 13 and 16 are a good place to go for the dragon. So I'm saying all of this is the United States, not our classic conception of the UN. So I'm not going to explain that. I'm just suggesting it.
The US speaks as a dragon.
Yeah, I mean, we know that straight out that it speaks as a dragon. But I'm saying the explanation of all of this complexity is to see that it's the United States that is the 10 kings, that is this dragon, and it's not that straightforward. So the only reason I mention that is you come to 1844, 1798 to 18, what are you expecting the dragon or paganism to even look like? To know that when you get here, you say, yep, that was it. I mean, what have they done in October? Are they going to, bomb a country, take over? There's going to be some major battle. What is the Millerites thinking? And if you go back, I don't think they really have this clarity on this. It all seems a bit nebulous. And so what they're going to do, I can't remember who said that, is they're going to, I think it's Brother Bob, they're going to use it as a second witness, if you like. And when you use things as second witnesses, you've got to be careful how you do that. Because if I can do this, you saw I had 1844. It shouldn't be 1844. It has to be 1843. And what they're going to do is they're going to have 3 prophecies that bring you to 1843. 508, 457, and then 677. These are BC, this is AD. And they're all going to bring you to here. This is the 1335, the 2300 days, and the 2520. Now you'd think, like, these are all second testimonies. But when you're going to bring second testimonies into a story, they're not much worth as a testimony unless they actually do what? Unless they testify. And I'm going to argue, without going into the into 1335 one, that the 2520, it doesn't really testify that well for them. It's kind of just like an appendage, like your appendix. It's there, but what's it for? We're not really sure what it's for. So this is why Ellen White's going to say things like the 2300 days was the central pillar or the foundation of, when she says our faith, she actually means the Millerite movement. It's all about the 2300 days. Brother Theodore.
Well, the Millerites, when they looked at these, if you read everything they say about the 2520, they just have it, the other prophecies are contained within it. but they really don't have any specific thing about the 2520 itself. And that's why the statement in Great Controversy 351, when it says the last and longest prophetic period was about to expire, that's referring to the 2520. And the judgment was at hand is the 2300, and God's everlasting kingdom being ushered in is the 1335. Because that's the way the Millerites would have understood that statement. They would have seen it as 3 different periods, all culminating at the same event.
Yep. Sister Tamir?
Would you mind summarizing the point you tried to convey in the last 3 minutes? Because I heard you, but I couldn't really.
Yeah, I haven't got there yet. That's why
Okay.
I'm just fielding questions. Sister Brittany.
When you wrote the 10 Kings dragon in USA, were you saying that's pre-Sunday law?
When I said this, no, this is Sunday law. That explains all of this.
How can you explain
Where's
more?
there 1,
So
2, 3?
41 and 42 are concurrent.
Sorry?
They're at the same time.
Yeah.
But how does that explain that?
Okay, so as I didn't want to go there. All I'm saying, the only reason I mention that is the Millerites are having problems with Revelation 17, and so are we. We're having problems with it because of our linear way of doing things, the way we conceptualize things. We just say 1, 2, 3. King of the South, glorious land, Egypt. It's all fine. This is kind of legacy arguments that we have. So now you're all quite savvy about this, because if I'd done this maybe a year or 2 years ago, 18 months, I would have trapped you and you would have been forced to do this. No, I'll do it on this bit here. You would have been, if I did that and I said, tell me where verse 41 goes, you'd put verse 41 here and you'd put verse 42 here. And so many times. But now you're not going to get tripped up about that anymore, so don't ask that question. Because we know that just doesn't work. Because that's how we would normally do it. We'd say, yeah, verse 41 is Sunday law, therefore verse 42 must be the other one, because there's not many waymarks in between. But we know that to be wrong now. So what we're doing is we're grappling with this concept of putting 41 and 42 in that way, which we know we can't do any longer. But in our minds, we still haven't tidied up that we still do 1, 2, 3, and the Sunday law is actually number 2. It's the second step, not the third step. So I'm not trying to, I don't want to field questions about explaining that. That wasn't the purpose of why I brought that up. The purpose of why I brought that up was to show us the difficulties that we face, and it's this 1 hour, the King's ruling, which I'm going to just say is Revelation 17. Revelation 17 is causing us problems, because if we didn't have Revelation 17, we'd just fall back to Revelation 13, and Revelation 13 is just like a nebulous concept. It doesn't give you the details that you need. It's the details that cause us problems. So were you going to try and address that? Because I'm not trying to sort that out.
I'm just asking. So basically, you'd say it's 1 and then 2 and 3 in the same time at the Sunday law.
Okay, so you want to talk it out. So I'm not going to do that. I don't want to do that. I just want us to see that there's a problem. So I'm going to go back to the Millerite history. The 2520 that's going to bring you to the same place. Please remember, I'm going to say October 1844. Okay, but remember it's 1843. We've got to think about their mind. The 2520 is just this paganism, and it really just is an appendage. And when you think about its usage in that fashion, and you're going to use this as a second witness, it therefore falls foul of that definition, because the second witness would actually witness to this event, and the 2520 doesn't witness to that event. All you have really is a mathematical calculation. And the mathematical calculation is not the end, it's the means to an end. You know, if I say 1989, and I'm going to do 2 waymarks, 1989, what's this waymark, Sister Alyssa? 1989. So this is 1863, and this is 126. I'm not really worried or interested in the 126, in the time period. I'm not interested in brings you to 1989. What I'm interested in is when it brings you somewhere, what is the event? Yeah? So we have to do that with that 2520. You have to know what it brings you to for it to be a witness. So I'm saying this is a witness here that 1989 is the time of the end. And so if you're going to do that, you have to be able to explain all of this information, not just do number crunching. This is a problem that we have in our movement at the moment. It's the issue because people have dates, 2019, 2020, 2021, and if you ask them, what does 2020 mean? Most people say, I'm not actually sure. I can do the number crunching, but as to what it is, I'm not sure. And this is the problem that the Millerites have with this 2520. You can do the number work, but how do you know what's happening? So what I want to do is just summarize all of those thoughts. When we come back here and she says the time had passed, how would you know if a time had passed? You certainly know the 2300 days because the earth had been cleansed with fire. People would have been killed. But the 2520, they're not making an unequivocal statement about what's going to happen at the end of that. It's just some generic thought. Now, I've done it this way. You saw how I did it that way. But Ellen White will describe it in another way, and she'll call it singular, the prophecy. And the Millerites were quite tricky about this. They did some manipulation of scripture to get this all to work. But all I want to say is this, which is what Brother Theodore has just mentioned, is that this here, if this was the 2520, these two prophecies just become components of that. So we'd do 677, 457 and 508, bringing you to 1843-44. And the prophecy would be this big one, and these are just components of one prophecy. She might call it links in a chain. The commencement would be this one, and then these are just subsets of that. So you can conceive it either way. I want to make the argument that the 2520, which is the second witness, if you like, using this kind of imagery, isn't really doing a good job. And the reason it's not doing a good job because they're not actually saying, we predict in October 1844, this event's going to happen. It just doesn't happen that way. So I'm arguing that the time that she's referring to here is the 2300 days, because it's all connected with the judgment, and you know for sure whether the time has passed or whether it hasn't passed. And the arguments that are going to happen in this history about time setting are not about the 2520. They're not about 25. They're not saying, you know, that capital should have been bombed by now. We're still waiting. So let's adjust everything. And that's what higher medicine's going to do. That's why higher medicine says, do you know William Miller's 2520 is wrong anyway? It's not even a second witness. Because he knew it didn't even serve the purpose that it was designed or the Millerites wanted to do, because he never was a second witness. So he says, we've got that all wrong. In fact, what the 2520 was, it was showing you, I'll have to come back here, it's showing you this. It was showing us the beginning of our faith, not this way, Mark. His argument is saying, we've misused the 2520. Now, again, I'm not trying to argue who's right and who's wrong. I'm just trying to show you the reasoning behind their thinking. And his argument, even though he doesn't say it this way, I'm saying conceptually, he says, the 2520, there was no event. We never had an event. Higher medicine, have got an event that everyone agrees on. 1798. It's an external event. You can go into history. The 2520 was such a big deal. You should be able to find something. And so that's what he's doing here. Miller writes, Miller's 2520 has fallen on its face. It was never an event that they could prophesy or predict about. Does that make sense? So I spent a long time. We learned hopefully a lot of things on the journey. But I wanted us to see how, if you, with some obviously pre-knowledge, and tying things together, that I think you can show that the passing of the time, as Brother Larry said, was the 2300 days. It's not all the prophetic periods that are joined together, even though I'm not arguing that they have prophetic periods.
Is that why you were earlier maybe it was yesterday or something, you were trying to make the point us to look at the start versus the end, because that's kind of what he was doing in this example. Is that the connection you're trying, or
yes.
Did I make that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Any questions on that? Sister Brittany.
The prophecy in her writings, and when it's relating to like a period, she's talking about the 2520.
In this passage?
No, not in this one. I
need some context. You don't have to go to a particular passage, but I'm not sure how to answer your question.
When she said the prophecy, I think that's what she's referring to.
Oh, on that particular, I'm suggesting, yeah.
Which passage is the spirit
I
prophecy?
don't know what that one is. I'd have to find it. Yeah, I shouldn't really have done that because I'm giving a concept that's not defend. That I'm not going to defend. Right there.
So would you say that Hiram Edson's understanding of the 2520 is actually the primary application of the 2520 that should have been done, especially based upon the prophecies of Daniel, and that the one that Miller chose is sort of a secondary 2520 that's the result of other prophecies?
I'd be reticent to say that because it sounds like I'd be trashing Miller, and Miller should be the one that's uplifted. Yeah. And the other thing is, if we had done that, their message would have been weakened and hindered if they had approached it that way, because they would never have been able to create this chart if they had done that. And this chart was created using Habakkuk 2, Ezekiel 12, and if they had used Hiram Edson's logic, the chart would not have worked. That's the problem. If we were to go to Habakkuk, don't turn there, chapter 1 and chapter 2, do we all know how they're going to use that passage? It says, write the vision and make it plain upon tables, yeah? So I'm picking up that. The focus of that passage, chapter 1 and chapter 2, is the end. Whatever that end is, it's the end. And that's what this chart is doing. It's fulfilling its role. It's talking about the end, and the end is not 1798. The end is here at the bottom of the chart. They do it in various ways. They've got this timeline that goes down. They've got this central column. It starts at the beginning, goes at the end. Their focus is here, which is a fulfillment of Habakkuk chapter 2. So if they had used Hiram Edson's logic and gone with that one, they would have shot themselves in the foot. It would have been a severe blow to their message. You know, I don't think we realise. She says here, many people do not realise how firmly the foundation of our faith has been laid. If we were just to apply that now, just to us, I think we in this movement do not stand back in awe of the work that the Lord has done in and through us. With the various men and women who have developed these truths and brought them together, and where we stand. Because if you think about the complexity just of this 2520 subject, how you dovetail Hiram Edson and Miller's work together and get them to function in a harmonious way, is nothing short of a miracle, I think. You know, and that's not even talking about the providential leading to actually find these passages and the right people connected together, and it all gets brought together into this central clearinghouse that we call FFA. It's not just that in of itself is a miracle, but then to actually sort all the details out and get them to work in a coherent fashion, I think we don't realise how firmly the foundation of our faith, of this movement, has been laid. And if we, you know, I don't think we spend enough time just standing in awe of this great work that's been done. Okay, so I want to summarise. We're in 1904. The church is in a crisis. She's going to take us back to the history post 1844, and she says, if you knew how firm this work had been, our message had been laid, you wouldn't be doing this today. If we were to make an application, I'm saying today, in the crisis that we're having, if we knew how firmly the foundations of our faith, of this movement, had been laid, we wouldn't be in this mess today. People wouldn't be pulling it. I'll let you give an application in a second. So I've got that. It's the passing of time, 1844. Time took us to this date. There's no more time. This is the foundation of their faith. We're marking the 1850 chart. But if we went to 1904, go back 50 years, it's 1854, and there's a 10-year that's been marked there. I like that. The question is, when it says the passing of time, what time is that? I'm saying that time is the 2300-day prophecy that she's referring to, not the 2520. So that's a summary of where we've got to. Brother Daniel.
We have a problem there because you're saying we are seeing that the foundation is laid after the close of probation, 1844, and now you're saying our foundation has been laid, and we didn't cross the close of probation yet. What do you think about that? It's not that the application. Yeah, I can do the application. So. The application.
Okay, so if you just hold on to your objection, we're going to shoot down your application in a minute, because your application is going to be based upon the thing that you just said a minute ago. Because I'm going to say, and how are you going to apply that after close of probation? So you go ahead.
So the logic is the beginning and the beginning of ancient and modern Israel. You have first the disappointment, and then God enters in covenant with his people. You have the Red Sea, you have a disappointment that Sister White parallels to 1844. And after that, in ancient Israel, Moses is in Mountain Sinai, and he receives the 2 tables, and that's Pentecost. And in 1844, after the disappointment, you have 1850, and number 50 is Pentecost. And they receive the 2 tables there. So you have God entering in covenant with both of them after the close of probation, after the disappointment, let's say like this. And Sister White says that sometimes it's from 1840 to 1850, and that's also number 10. And from 1840 to 1844, you have 4 years. And from 1844 to 1850, you have 6 years, so you have 4 and 6, and that's 46.
This has been paid up for days, hasn't it?
Wow. And that's the 2 covenants, 4 in one side and 6 in the other. The 2 tables and Habakkuk tables, and what more? Oh yeah, so what I solved the problem is, because that's ancient Israel. That's the beginning of ancient and modern Israel. In the end of...
Is that right?
Yeah, disappointment, Pentecost, 50, that's the Red Sea and the law. Yeah, 1844, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I got that.
Yeah.
So that was the first half. The rest?
The second... You didn't got the 4 and the 6.
Because it was too fast.
1840 to 1844, you have 4 years. And then you have more 6. So
okay, I'm going to do that this way. 40 to 44 to 50 is 4 years and 6 years.
And that's 10. The 10
46 equals 10.
Yeah, the 10 commandments from.
10 commandments?
Yeah, the 4 and 6.
Yeah.
And you have the 2 tables in 1850. Yeah, okay. So the other thing is.
I like that. I think that's good. Does everybody get that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really neat.
Yeah, that's it. So what I understand about God laying out the foundation for His people is, in the beginning of ancient and modern Israel, He enters in covenant with His people after the close of probation, after the disappointment. But in the end of ancient Israel, God's gonna confirm the covenant in the last week, before the close of probation, age 34. So what I think is, in the end, He enters in covenant before the close of probation, the last week. And that's the midway, the cross. And I think God enters in covenant with us before the close of probation, because we are in the end of modern Israel. That's what I would suggest.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
We'll see in a second if I can get that. So this is Moses. This is Christ. This is Miller. And this is us.
Yeah.
And this is close of probation. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. And in this history, he's going to enter into covenant after.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'll put a star here. What event is that?
Red Sea.
And this one is
Pentecost.
Pentecost. And the star equals covenant.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The cross.
It's the last week before it close of probation.
This is 34
Yes.
AD. And covenant is here.
Yes.
And this is, what's the covenant?
The cross.
31.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So the Millerites.
1850.
Yeah,
1844.
This is 1844. And it's here.
Yes.
And this is 1850.
Yeah.
And for us, this is Daniel 12:1.
Yes.
And it's here.
Sunday law.
And this is
Midnight. Or
Sunday law.
2014.
Sunday law.
Oh, good. You've we're on the same page now. So, did everybody get that? Even if you don't understand all of how we did that, that there's this difference between the beginning and the end. This one and this one is the beginning of ancient Israel. So this is the beginning of ancient Israel, the end of ancient Israel. So the end, sorry, no. This is modern Israel, and this is ancient Israel. The beginning and the end, the beginning and the end. The beginning one, he goes into covenant afterwards, goes into covenant before, and the pattern repeated. Brother Clayton.
Does this match up with what you were saying about the false and the true midnight cry, though? It jives with that same pattern right there, doesn't it?
In what way? I'm not.
I mean, it seems to be the opposite. They're just in the same 4 patterns the way you've done it the other way.
Yes.
Okay.
Was there anything more, Brother Dan, you can say?
Sorry, said
Anything more?
No.
Okay. Any comment? Sister Tamina?
I was going to say we can mark October 22nd, 1844 and 2014, and which would make us being now right now in the time period where we confirm where we are considering the firm foundation of our faith, which we can connect with the vision from Ellen White about the platform, where the people standing on the platform are retelling the history, how they came to the platform, and this will cause other people who have stepped off come back on.
Okay. That was a too deep application, so I'm not going to explain that one. Brother Theodore?
So just a sort of a clarification, we have the Red Sea, which is at midnight, which is the close of probation. And in 34 AD, we have the events, the stoning of Stephen, which, I mean, it's not at midnight, but that's the close of probation. And then we have Pentecost, which is after the close of probation. And in Christ's line, is it the cross or is it Pentecost where the covenant? Or is it just one sort of group of events?
I put 31 as the year.
Yeah, 31 is the year, but you didn't say if it's the cross or Pentecost. Or are they just tied together? For the covenant, where are we putting that star?
Why Red Sea is midnight?
No.
Oh, this is, let's go back to your other question. Why is Red Sea midnight?
Because it was at midnight.
Red Sea.
Literally. Oh, yeah, when they crossed the Red Sea. It was at midnight.
But the disappointment was before the cross.
Huh?
What are you marking? The Red Sea is not the crossing of the sea, it's the disappointment. But yeah,
It's the close of probation. It's the close of probation, that's all I'm saying.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Daniel says that he's going to confirm the covenant for 1 week. I don't know if it's where it's marking the covenant being confirmed. I look to the cross. For me, it makes more sense, but I don't know.
I think it's actually the whole period from the cross to Pentecost, but I mean, I have a reason why I'm asking the question, but it's...
You have a reason?
Well, yeah, but it's a little bit big of a reason.
I don't know. So they're going to cross the Red Sea at midnight? I didn't know that.
Yeah, they cross at nighttime. The Red Sea,
I
it's
know
at sunset,
I know it's at night time, but we know specifically at midnight.
Well, midnight's in the middle of the night, and that's when they cross.
Okay, so you're just saying conceptually. There's not a quote that says...
Just conceptually.
Okay, that's fine, yes. Okay.
But the thing is, also, in that history, there is also the midnight that happens with the Passover, too. So, I was just trying to understand that close of probation, why the Red Sea's the close of probation.
As opposed to?
As opposed to Passover.
Yeah, I've wondered the same as well.
Okay.
Brother Daniel prefers the Red Sea.
Okay, because that's why I was asking about the midnight. Was it because it was at midnight? Where Passover's at midnight as well. And so...
He was picking up the disappointment. You were picking up the disappointment.
Yeah, disappointment.
It's the disappointment that...
With the close of probation, so you can pick the disappointment.
Okay, so all of these are disappointments?
That's maybe better than close of probations.
Yeah.
That would... So what's the disappointment in 34?
Yeah, if you...
And you're marking both these as
those two are
disappointments?
But see, those don't need to...
They're not.
See, they're not, so that actually helps.
You could put Pentecost below 1850. You said that earlier, too.
Did?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So in the beginnings, there's a disappointment, but in the ends, there isn't, with the close of probations. Is that what you're saying? Which would help?
What is all of this?
Just to show that the beginning of ancient Israel, God enters in covenant after the close of probation. But I don't know if you want to mark close of probation as Red Sea, but...
Okay, so I'm okay with that. Even if it was Passover, it'd still be after.
Yeah, so in the beginning of ancient and modern Israel is after the close of probation.
Okay.
But in the end of modern and ancient Israel is before the close of
Okay.
probation.
And why do we need to know that? What's it showing?
Because you just said the foundation that has been laid, and I believe so. We have a firm foundation that's being laid. It's like it's done.
For us?
For us.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And we didn't reach the close of probation. So I agree with you. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. So the argument you're making is that foundation that we are laying is all before the close of probation.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think it's complete.
and you think it's complete, and then you say you don't know at the end. I thought you were firm on it. Let's pray. Our Heavenly Father, we want to give you praise and thanks for the mercy and the goodness that you show to us day by day as we begin to see that this facility is beginning to change in preparation for the upcoming camp meeting. We want to pray for a blessing upon the work that needs to be still done to prepare us for next week. As we think about the thoughts and ideas that you have taught us this morning, it's my hope and prayer that these ideas, these thoughts will strengthen our faith, that as Ellen White tried to show your people in her generation, that the foundations were laid properly and correctly, and if we only went back to them, we wouldn't enter into fanaticism. Lord, please be with us. Please guide us through this day. We ask for a special blessing upon the food that's been provided, and we ask for special care and protection for all of those who are here on the various journeys and activities that each of us have to do. Be with us and bless us, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.